Red Dead Redemption 2's narrative is one that, unlike its predecessor, is very focused on a consistent cast of supporting characters. Whilst in the original, people would jump in and out of John's journey, the prequel took a different angle and created 23 separate characters that not only played a big part in Arthur's journey, but were also the driving motivation for most of his actions in the game. So considering the majority of this game's narrative is built around saving the gang from the imminent doom of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, it was vital that Rockstar made us care about the people we were protecting. And that's where Chapter 2 comes in. Although the first chapter of Red Dead 2 sets up Arthur, Dutch, Micah and John flawlessly, it does leave most of the rest of the gang by the wayside, as its quick pacing speeds past any sort of character development. Instead of rushing these people's stories into the first chapter, Rockstar took a slight risk by building the whole of Chapter 2 around connecting the player to these men and women loyal to the gang, creating a 5 to 10 hour introduction sequence that isn't exactly common in their past works. Look at GTA 5 for example, which roughly an hour in already has Franklin and Michael chasing the tennis coach that did the dirty with Amanda. There's not exactly much waiting around to get to the point. However, Red Dead 2 takes the slow approach, and that begins with a chilled out ride into the local town, Valentine, with Uncle and the girls, where we get a small insight into each of their personalities and backstories. Karen's a take no shit kind of woman who'll rob any man who glances at her. Mary Beth is a smart, quiet girl who uses her wits to find any opportunities. Tilly is a strong woman who's been through enough trauma for a lifetime, something we get a glimpse at from the foreman boy who grabs her in the street. And Uncle... well, he's Uncle. Valentine itself pulls parallels to the first town of the original game, Armadillo. It has all the makings of the classic idea of a western town, that iconic single street setup, a gun store, a saloon, the sheriff's office, and a church at the top of said street. I can only imagine these clear parallels were drawn to create a feeling of homeliness within Valentine, thanks to the memories of Armadillo, and that's certainly the effect it had on me, with the slightly run-down town feeling like a real safe haven after the icy winds of the mountains. But that initial feeling of safety is thrown out the window when Arthur's, well, thrown out a window. I don't know about you, but back in the day, I'd create hypothetical saloon brawls all the time in Red Dead 1, so throwing this straight in the player's face so quick once again shows how understanding Rockstar is of their audience. Heading back to camp, Arthur gets a chance to go out hunting with Hosea, followed by a scam at Emerald Ranch, both of which show Hosea to be the true brains of the gang, the man truly holding things together and making things happen. After the successful robbery, the two head back to camp, and that's when we're greeted with arguably the best mission in this entire game.
Shut up, mister! Yeah, shut your mouth, mister.
One hangover later, and Arthur's back out on the road, first down to Blackwater, to rescue Sean with the help of Charles, Javier, and of course Josiah Trelawney, in perhaps the most mismatched group of bandits ever laid on Earth. Then he heads up to Strawberry, a newer, larger town, one the likes of which we've not seen before, on another rescue mission. This time, Micah. In Chapter 1, we got a glimpse of the true nature of Micah Bell, but it's not until here that we're shown the full extent of his impulsive wrath. After breaking the man out, instead of running for the horses, he whips out his pistol, not a euphemism, and begins shooting up the entire town, forcing Arthur to massacre these innocent people along with him or risk being shot himself. And all for what? Well, so that Micah can get his guns back. This moment truly solidifies the dichotomy between Micah and Arthur, between the ideals that Dutch leads the gang by and the lack of any that Micah lives by. The town of Strawberry 2 is very symbolic in its innocent nature. Not only is it the closest thing we've seen to a city up to this point, but it's also somewhere we've never been before. All of these people, to the absolute extent of our knowledge, are entirely innocent. They've not once done anything to deserve what Micah puts upon them. This is just a simple lumbering town in the woods that were unlucky enough to have the wrath of Micah Bell strike down. But as always, that wrath is completely random in its direction, and these unsuspecting victims are left with nothing. Moving on from Strawberry, the rest of Chapter 1 is our chance to finally see the clearly fractured relationship between Arthur and John, with Marston looking into a train robbery that'd be easy to pull off. Whilst Arthur is clearly doubtful from the offset, John's plan intrigues him enough to try it out, and after a couple of setup missions reminiscent of GTA 5, him, John, Charles and Sean head onto the tracks with an oil wagon to stop the train and take their well-earned spoils. After the less than impressive reintroduction we got to John in Chapter 1, this set of missions is the first step in him proving himself to Arthur. But despite a hefty take from the train, we're still of course met with the law, who show up en masse nearly immediately, which spikes some concern from Arthur, John and Charles, as the first seeds of doubt about their new lives begin being laid. And these doubts are brought to the forefront in the mission that follows this heist, as Abigail asks Arthur to take Jack out and entertain him, given his father's neglect. Despite the sunny lakeside fishing spot they find feeling like the most peaceful place in the entire game though, though, that tranquility is ruined pretty quickly as detectives Milton and Ross appear at Arthur's back. Not only does this mission build an emotional attachment between Arthur and Jack, but it also provides an absolutely beautiful parallel with the grand finale of the original game. Jack meeting Ross for the first time out fishing, throwing the fish back harmlessly, beautifully mirrors the scene of Ross ruthlessly duck hunting prior to Jack killing him 15 years later. It's an absolutely incredible mission to bring the chapter to a close, with one final shootout in Valentine forcing the gang to get away as soon as possible. And so alongside Charles, Arthur begins to ride south, a plan he'd never expect Dutch to go through with considering his hatred for the southern states. But this is to be just the first of Dutch's many out of character decisions that he begins making as things fall further and further apart. What this chapter does for Arthur, what it does for the entire gang, is so vital for the payoffs in the final chapters to mean something. Without this foundation, the interpersonal relationships between the gang would feel so much more shallow and unimportant. But giving each character time to truly shine, to show who they are as people and show why Arthur cares about them, these moments act as vital building blocks on which the stakes of the entire game's story are built. From a gameplay perspective, this may be the hardest chapter to replay, as it's a lot of exposition and plenty of tedium that's only really exciting the first 1 or 2 times through. But if this chapter didn't do what it did, to make the gang feel like a true family, to give the player a reason to love and care for these people the way Arthur does, then Red Dead Redemption 2's narrative would simply not work. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, it would really help me out if you could hit like, and also if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and turn post notifications on. We are on the path to 10,000 subscribers and we're so close, so it would really be appreciated. Also, if you want to support the channel, Patreon links are as always in the description below. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Scarab, and I will see you in the next one.